Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the snow shoveling homicides that took place in Plains, Pennsylvania in February of 2021? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll describe the incident, and then I'll offer my analysis. This incident occurred on February 1, 2021 in Plains, Pennsylvania. This is not far from Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. It involves three neighbors, 47-year-old Jeffrey Spaide, 50-year-old James Goy, and 48-year-old Lisa Goy. James Goy and Lisa Goy were a married couple. 2 months prior to this, after a snowstorm, they had been in an altercation, so there was a bit of animosity kind of coming into this. Now, on this day, once again there was a snowstorm. Sometime after about 9 a.m., an argument started between Spaide and the Goys as they were clearing snow from their respective properties. A surveillance camera captured the incident. The Goys were shoveling snow from their parking spaces across the street onto Spaide's driveway. The argument started after Spaide told them to discontinue that activity. James Goy threatened Jeffrey Spaide by saying, "If you step out here, I'll knock your blank out." James Goy also said, "I'll make your life a living hell here, blank." Spaide responded to him by saying, "Blank you blank scum." So not exactly an intellectually stimulating conversation. At this point, Lisa Goy decides to offer her thoughts, saying, "You are the blank scumbag. You don't know how to talk to somebody." James Goy expresses agreement with his wife by saying, "That's right, you're a blank, blank, blank." He used the same word 3 times. It begins with the letter P and is sometimes used as an insult, meaning insufficiently masculine. James Goy also extended his middle finger and raised his fist in a threatening manner. James Goy and Lisa Goy used many, many more expletives than I've indicated here. They just really kept going on and on, insulting Spaide. Spaide walks up his driveway and back into his house. He returns moments later carrying a pistol. This was at about 9:31 a.m. Lisa Goy said, "Go ahead, go ahead." I wonder if she saw too many Dirty Harry movies. She didn't remember that when Clint Eastwood was playing Dirty Harry, his character was the one holding the gun. It looked like she pulled out her cell phone and was trying to record Jeffrey Spaide. James Goy was a little bit more concerned with safety. He said, "Put the gun down." Spaide decided to follow Lisa Goy's advice and shot them both several times. Lisa Goy, now lying in the middle of the street after being shot, yells, "You blank you." Spaide walks up to her and shoots her 2 more times. James Goy yells, "Call the cops." Spaide walks up to him and fires 1 more shot. The slide locks back on his weapon, indicating he has exhausted his ammunition. He tries to fire it again, but of course he cannot. Spaide returned to his house, and about 40 seconds later came back out with a rifle. He approached Lisa Goy and said, "You should have kept your blank mouth shut." He then shot her 2 times. He walked over to James Goy and yelled, "Blank, huh." So he used the same expletive that James Goy had used before 3 times, that word meaning insufficiently masculine. Spaide then shot James Goy 2 more times. As the police arrived, they heard a single gunshot coming from Spaide's house. He brought an end to his own life using a rifle, but not the same rifle he used just a few moments before. James Goy and Lisa Goy did not survive the attack. Now moving to my analysis. This appears to be a situation where tempers on both sides were elevated, but one person went way too far. Spaide did not seem prepared to commit these homicides, for example, going back to retrieve the pistol and then returning to the house to get the rifle. I think it is reasonable to believe that he reached some type of limit from the many insults and threats that were coming his way. Instead of calling the police, he decides to get revenge. It will be the last time he will be insulted by them. He was going to make them pay the ultimate price for disrespecting him. He may have known in that moment that he would also die that day, or he may not have been thinking about that. When he ran out of ammunition, he could have taken a moment to reconsider what he was doing. It's not clear if he delivered any hits that would have been fatal, assuming the Goys received medical attention at some point afterward. Instead, he wanted to make sure his revenge would be complete. He was committed to his plan. He retrieves the rifle and shoots them essentially at point-blank range, making a comment to each of them, suggesting that they caused their own deaths by insulting him. Spaide had a successful career in the Navy before this. He was an engineer, not a line of work associated with impulse control problems. Did Spaide just snap in the moment and go from what I would presume to be a law-abiding citizen to a killer? There are two theories in situations like this. Theory number one, Spaide had a willingness and desire to die. Maybe he was depressed or otherwise emotionally dysregulated. With all these insults and threats from the Goys, he decided that he could complete all of his goals over the course of the next few minutes. Essentially, the argument produced an opportunity. Perhaps he thought that it would disguise his motivation for his death, like he was worried about how family and friends would think about him if they knew how he died. But after committing 2 murders, it just looks like he didn't want to go to prison. So they might not have known about any depression or something else that could have been going on. Theory number 2, Spaide did all this in the heat of the moment. He wasn't thinking about the future. After realizing he committed a double homicide and knowing where that would leave him, he decided he didn't want to stick around. Essentially, with Theory 1, he had the whole plan in mind, and under Theory 2, he was just acting completely on emotions. Whatever the motive and logistics behind the killings, Jeffrey Spaide was responsible for the murders. Even though the Goys were not acting intelligently, they did not deserve to die. It is still worth looking at their behavior. One could ask this question: was there anything that they could have done to prevent their own deaths? Well, I do have a few ideas. Based on the behavior of James Goy, I would say something like, don't threaten people with physical harm, and don't insult people by yelling expletives at them repeatedly. Who knows, maybe that somehow contributed to this problem. In looking at Lisa Goy's behavior, I would say the no insulting people rule is relevant, but also she made another mistake. After Spaide retrieved his weapon and was walking toward her and her husband, she pulled out her cell phone and approached him, holding the phone up as if she was recording. Maybe she was actually recording, I don't know. She closed the distance to the man carrying the gun. She also said to him, as I mentioned before, go ahead, go ahead. She assumed that Spaide was afraid to use lethal force because of consequences. That was the whole idea behind recording it, like she would get him in trouble later. The problem is that for Spaide, there was no later. Lisa Goy failed to understand that sometimes when people are getting ready to commit murder, they do not worry about the consequences. They worry about making sure they successfully complete the homicide. She was using non-homicidal rules to play a homicidal game. She assumed he was rational and future-oriented. The crime Spaide committed is called Interpersonal Conflict Precipitated Homicide-Suicide. What does the research tell us about perpetrators of these types of crimes? These types of crimes are quite rare. Almost all of the perpetrators are men. About 65% involve a man killing a female intimate partner over an imminent perceived threat of separation. The average age of the perpetrator is between 40 and 50. Again, Spaide was 47. Substance use is a factor about half the time. There's no information about whether Spaide had consumed substances. Perpetrators usually have a low rate of prior criminal behavior. About 80% of the time, they're employed full-time, and firearms are used 85% of the time. As far as mental health, between 40 and 70% are depressed. So there is a good likelihood that Spaide could have been depressed. So here's my summary for this case. This seemed like one of those situations where nobody wanted to back down. Both sides should have just walked away from this confrontation. But I'll focus on the behavior of Jeffrey Spaide because, again, he is the one that took things way too far. The disparaging remarks from the Goys meant nothing. and the threats should have simply been reported to the police. It was not what actually happened that motivated Spaide. It was his interpretation of what happened, his perception. He was fooled into believing that what the Goys did mattered. He assigned a high value to their meaningless actions. He let his own hurt sense of pride, self-esteem, and dignity translate into homicide. An engineer, of all people, should have realized this was ridiculous math by anyone's calculation. Those are my thoughts on the snow shoveling homicide-suicide in Plains, Pennsylvania. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.